Good morning. Good morning. So while our panel is getting set up in their spots here, I want to tell you a quick story about something that happened yesterday at the airport. So this is, by the way, when Marty was doing her numerical countdown, I thought it was going to be like, stay standing if you've been to 5, stay standing if you've been to 10, and so forth. This is actually my 41st iMedia summit, going all the way back to November of 2001. So I think I've actually been to more than Rick Parkhill at this point, because he dropped out for a while. But anyway, so I'm at the airport, took the dark 30 flight from Vermont yesterday morning, connected, got to Colorado Springs, and I come down the escalator. You guys all made this journey, a lot of you made this journey yesterday. Come down the escalator, and I'm looking for the transportation, right? Looking for, is there a van, is there a bus, are we doing our own thing? And I see this familiar logo, the little crest of the mountains like that, and right underneath it, it says, Summit Ministries. So I thought to myself, well, this makes sense. Because we've got attribution, we've got the role of DSPs, we've got the role of targeting, all this stuff. We've met over 50 different events over the years. We've talked about it. What's left but prayer? So hopefully we can get some divine intervention in covering our topic today, because it's an absolute monster of a topic. So I'm going to very, very quickly take you into what we're going to do up here over the course of the next 40 minutes or so. We have 4 great marketers. All of their bios are in the book today. They're wonderful bios. They're incredibly astute, erudite, experienced people. I'm not going to spend any time going over those bios now, because we really want to get to the issues. But we have Lisa Bari from Virgin America, Jennifer Wainwright from Valvoline, and specifically from the instant oil change business at Valvoline. So if you're not in a part of the country that has their stores, think of them as sort of the primary competitor to the Jiffy Lubes of the world and the Oil and Go's of the world. Barbara Williams, who's from Microsoft, works in the Xbox business, and our own Cathleen Ryan from TurboTax. So the 4 of them are going to bring, representing 4 iconic brands, also representing their own background, both as marketers and as agency people. What's great is that all four of these ladies have experience on the agency side as well. So to those of you who represent agencies in the audience today, they're reaching back from their role as marketers into your relationships with those marketers. We're going to talk about ways that you can retrofit and grow your businesses in light of what social, local, and mobile present. So 4 iconic brands, 4 points of view, and of course 1 giant hairball of a topic, right, which is social, local, and mobile. So how do we make sense of this in a short amount of time? So what I'm doing is I'm using a device, right? I'm going to use 6 different hypotheses. Now, these are my ideas. I'm going to put them up there. You all in the audience may disagree wildly with what I have to say, and that's great. The folks in the audience or on the panel will react to those. They'll expand on them. They'll offer their opinions and so forth. But the idea is we start with these hypotheses. We try to drive some brisk comments. So you saw the hashtag iMedia Summit. Our goal is to be eminently tweetable up here, right? So I feel like the more ideas and themes and sort of tweetable quotes that come out of this session, the more we're going to serve the ongoing conference that goes from here. And I'm going to ask. We have 2 microphones that are going to be running around the audience here. So as we are finishing up on a particular hypothesis, I'm going to ask for your comments as well, because we want to get comments from folks in the audience. If you try to sell from the floor or position your company or that kind of stuff, I'm going to cut you off, right? We're going to keep this thing moving, right? We have 36 minutes and 6 seconds left to offer a tremendous amount of goodness. So we're going to keep this show going. Okay, so hypothesis number 1, ladies. The narrow, rigid focus on attribution and immediate direct response metrics. We're obsessed with these things as a business. They threaten to stifle innovation and creative thinking in social, local, and mobile. It's time to get off the testing treadmill and act boldly and decisively. Agree, disagree, build on this. Lisa?
Well, I think we just don't have all the attribution tools necessary, nor will people ever sign off on all the attribution tools necessary or the hypotheses or the solutions that they would provide, right? So getting someone to agree on what all these attribution models are going to solve is very difficult. So you have to move forward and do something, or else you're doing nothing, okay. Right?
Kathleen, do we test instead of making decisions?
Well, let me start with I agree, but with a caveat to this, which is doing for the sake of doing is not going to be successful. We need to tie this to business outcomes. I think we are unfortunately beholden to traditional digital media, wherein there is a conversion event somewhere on a phone or in a social space that we need to or feel we need to tie it to. I think we need to broaden our definition of business outcome and say, where is success?
Yeah, I want to challenge you, and I think Chris brought this up in the opening as well. I want to challenge the idea that we're beholden to internet metrics. I mean, I think we could carry the click with us into this era, or we could leave it behind.
I think the pattern has been to carry it with. I would like to see it go. The best tools we have from digital are arguably not that great. And so bringing them forward into the new frontier seems like a terrible use of a subpar tool to begin with. So how do we look at these things differently? How do we focus on business outcomes? Is it engagement? Is it getting in front of users? The metrics kind of follow when you've determined what it is you want that to be, what the outcome is to be.
Barbara, this statement kind of calls out a lot of people in our business, right, who timidly sort of iterate and inch away and chip away at various testing metrics, right? I mean, are you sick and tired of this testing treadmill as I am?
I definitely am, and I think there's a balance. To your point, I don't think we just go and just do things because it's the latest and greatest thing to do, but we need a framework, a foundation of how do we evaluate and look at these new innovative technologies and new ways of reaching our consumers. What's our framework on how we go about that? And then we can do different things, but still bring it back to, did this work or how did this work and what we can learn from it? And it's not just the behavioral metrics that we've had in the past, it's expanding those, but also the attitudinal. And quite often, we just kind of, whether it's budgets or executive view into what's going on, we kind of boil that down to a couple of metrics that really don't tell the whole story. And we don't have that framework to go back to say, how did this fit with everything that we're doing? We look at it in silos. So we definitely need to get off the testing treadmill. We need to test and pilot, but in the framework of something bigger and still act boldly and decisively. And a lot of that comes from top down.
Now, I heard a story the other day, and I apologize if it was from one of you, but it might have been from one of my clients, where they were talking about somebody running a mobile campaign, and it was a small sort of direct-to-consumer mattress business. And the metric was people who would click on the ad on their phones, go to a mobile website, and actually transact and buy a mattress from their phone. And I realized at that point that we had actually gone through the looking glass, and we were dealing with people who were completely untethered from reality of business.
Are there any conversions?
Yeah, apparently not too many.
And that's putting an old lens on a completely new set of problems and opportunities.
Right.
All right. So question, and Jen, I'll go to you on this. So, what's a meaningful framework for not going crazy and just trying things for the sake of trying them, but bringing commitment into our efforts here? Because it seems to me like the race is going to go to the bold and the swift here.
Yeah, I agree. I think my brand's kind of interesting because I'm oil changes, and so it's not like I like to say it's not a very sexy category to be in as a brand marketer, but as a internet and direct marketer, it's really kind of interesting what we can learn. And I do think that being bold and swift is valuable. I think that does depend a little bit on the industry that you're in. Again, oil changes, I don't have the pressure to be as bold and swift by my consumers as other industries. So I think it kind of depends on what your definition of bold and swift is within your category. Where are you now and where do you want to go? So bold and swift for some organizations might be getting a Facebook page. And for other organizations, it might be developing an app and doing all these other things. And I think it depends on what you've got now, what your competitors have, and how far you have to go.
But I mean, arguably, something like mobile would be hugely important in a business like yours because,
absolutely.
I mean, how long can you pay that guy to dance on the street with a sign and say, stop in for your oil change?
Longer than you'd think.
I guess in a tight economy where jobs are scarce, you can get that guy. But
some people just like to dance.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, quite entertaining.
Mobile is absolutely very important to our business, and that's a space where we are being very bold and decisive, I think, for we're not trying to test minutely, we're just going and building big.
All right, so audience, raise your hand if you are sick of testing as a substitute for action when it comes to new channels, new media. I got one person wildly waving her hand there. We've
Very
got 4, 5, 6, 10. Looks like about maybe a third of the audience. So we have microphones, going around here. Your quick comments, 10, 15 seconds on this topic. Are we done? Chris, you can kick it off with a comment here if you want to.
Okay. Thanks, Doug. They did tell me that was going to happen. Yeah, no, I actually I agree with the getting off the testing treadmill because I think it moves too slow, and I think our industry moves way too fast. So we got to move a little bit quicker. So I'm with that point, but would love to hear from somebody else on this side of the room. Okay.
Okay. Robin Hassan from Starcom. And I think one of the challenges for clients when they're looking at testing is there's always this tendency, oh, we'll try this one little thing, but it's fine to test, but always make sure that if you're actually going to do the investment, do it properly so that there is real learning that you can reapply moving forward. I think that's a big piece around the
Doug,
testing.
can I make
Robin, I'm glad you said that. I'm glad you're from Starcom. So the question,
Excellent.
I don't know if you
Starcom
are,
Canada,
but I think you are. Anyway, so one of my questions for you is when you get into a testing parameter on something in the social, local, or mobile arena, for a customer, is there already sort of a contingency plan built in? Like if this works at this level, then we go to this level of spending, or is it just kind of like we might get another test?
So the way we approached it is we've sort of taken that traditional Cook model of 70, 20, 10. So 10%, assuming it's enough budget to actually influence a proper test and have real learning. Yep. And then take the learnings from that 10% and apply it in the 20%. So you keep growing and learning, and then eventually the 20% translates to the core budget.
Yep.
So that's how we approach it.
Great.
Another one over here.
Hi, Art Muldoon from Recorded Media. Certainly, definitely agree. Testing is not a strategy, and many marketers tend to kind of hide behind the idea of testing as a way to cover your ass, and but it's really not a long-term strategy. However, we all pride ourselves on being innovative and advancing the market. Marketers benefit from innovation, and they take advantage of inefficiencies when they come across a new opportunity. How do you guys look at balancing, the need to be and the opportunity to be innovative and try new things, but not just be addicted to considering it's a crutch as a test?
It's a real problem. I'll take a stab at that, which is I think, when moving into areas that are for the business unproven or don't have solid metrics behind it already, you look at tests that can prove or disprove your hypotheses, and those hypotheses better ladder up to business outcomes. And so, we put hypotheses out there about how our users, how our customers, and how our prospects might actually engage with tax content or tax prep on a mobile device or in a social channel. But we kind of stack our tests against those hypotheses to kind of prove or disprove, and if we prove, we step on the gas.
Can I add something?
Sure.
One of the things that I find in testing, because we do a lot of testing. More than anything, it's more almost like trial, and it helps us make sure that things work in our store environment and operations is on board. So there's a lot of value to that, and don't let that get kind of lost in the shuffle here. But also, I'm amazed how much we learn and how wrong our hypotheses sometimes are, or just off by a degree or two. So there is still a lot of value in at least getting some kind of trial balloon in some of these spaces, because you're more often wrong than right.
I think the one thing that I would take away from this part of the discussion is the idea of go into the test with something either you want to prove or disprove,
yes,
and then act on what you learn. Right? Either do a lot more of something or do a lot less of something. One more comment over here.
Amy Auerbach from MediaCom New York. I would just say that this testing thing also kind of slows things down because a test is such a discrete kind of thing. What we try to do is just sort of think about it in terms of benchmarking, doing new things, and then just creating benchmarks with the assumption that we're going to continuously improve. And then also just trying to sell.
How's that working out, Amy?
We're doing okay, because right now mobile does a lot better than desktop for what we're doing. I think it's a novelty thing, and mobile, you can sort of, I think the frequency kind of moderates itself a little bit better. But also, even kind of working from what we already know, kind of having one foot in the past of online advertising and kind of just drawing a line in the sand as a comparison point, I always say the easiest way for us to sell through things is sort of keeping one foot in the past and one foot in the future and trying to look for similarities versus differences of what we've done in the past and what we need to do in the future. And that seems to increase the level of comfort when we're selling these things through.
I led with this question for a very specific reason, because one of the things that I firmly believe is that incrementalism is our enemy. And that as we try and struggle to sort of apply science and come up with the perfect paradigms, along comes Facebook or someone else who ignores all the standards, ignores all the past principles, ignores the swim lanes, walks off with all the money. That seems to be it seems like that's happened to us at least 4 or 5 times now. Let's jump ahead to our second.
One point I wanted to make on that too. When it comes to testing, and one thing that I've experienced at Microsoft is there may be something that we test and got results, whether it's good or bad, but as time goes on and all of this space is so dynamic and things change, that test means nothing 9 months later. So if we're not acting on it very quickly and have very discrete areas and discrete methodologies on how we test, the tests are nothing. Because the space is so dynamic. So I think that's another point to look at as we're developing these strategies.
That's a great point. So whatever sort of model you build to understand the world today may be worthless in 6 months.
Exactly.
Because they're changing.
Yeah, when did you do your test? I mean, was that a year ago, 2 years ago? It's not relevant.
Exactly. Okay, so we're going to jump ahead to our second hypothesis here. Today's social conversation begins and very often ends with Facebook. But it's not going to stay like that for very long. There's room for a lot more players to innovate and create social value. Facebook is just the base that sits underneath all this. A strong statement. Lisa?
I mean, if you just look at Facebook mobile, for example, Facebook's mobile experience is not great. And the advertising opportunities there are also not great. So just in that, and given how many people are using Facebook on mobile, you've got to look elsewhere. Where are your customers? Where are your guests in Virgin America's case?
Okay. Anybody jump in any particular order here? So what do you think?
I would say, social is a behavior and a state of mind. It's not a destination. Facebook is a destination and by far the largest one. You can't ignore it, and most brands, GM excluded, likely play there. But it's really about a behavior, and there's so many other ways to get at that behavior. And when you look at the way that people share digital content, whether that's from a mobile device, whether it's from desktop, whether it's from another social platform, using those sharing experiences, those social experiences, and engaging with consumers where they're having conversations is really the key to understanding social. Facebook is one how to that.
Totally agree. I think to your point and Chris's point earlier, we lose sight that we're talking about human beings who are communicating with other human beings and using digital content to do that. And Facebook is one of the tools to facilitate that, but we still have to stay focused. These are people that are actually talking to each other. And we look at it, and this is probably ironic coming from Microsoft, but from a technology perspective, we look at everything in terms of the data that we see in our computers and, the ones and O's, but these are people, living, breathing people who our basic nature is to want to connect with one another, whether it's through digital or face-to-face, and Facebook is a tool for that.
Right.
And as marketers, if we can remember that, it can very much change our social strategies, because we're not just looking at destinations, we're looking at how do we facilitate that connection.
Now, let's bring it down to the level of people, right, which I agree with. Boy, there's a shitload of them on Facebook, isn't there? I mean, if the way to think about Facebook, in my opinion, is if Facebook were a country, it would be India with a really good household income, right? So, how does Facebook not dominate marketers' thinking when it comes to social? Jen, what do you think about that?
We're kind of an interesting example because we're kind of late to the game in the social space. Again, I think it comes back to oil changes are not as inherently social. So we haven't been kind of pressured to be there, even though I think it's important that we understand, Barbara, to your point, these are people on the go. How can I connect in with their world and make an oil change sharing opportunity something valuable for them and their friends? And I agree, Facebook is just one example.
Surely somebody must have met their future spouse, waiting for their oil change at one of your stores. I mean, what a great story that would be.
That would be great.
Sounds like a campaign.
Be surprised. We have heard some of our research through this is a little aside. Some of our female customers really like coming in and looking at the guys in the store, which I thought was really funny. So it's a possibility.
Huge competitive advantage over the guys at Jiffy Lube, by the way. Hey, not a good-looking group.
Hey, Doug, can I chime in on that one?
Yeah.
So Facebook, the application developers on Facebook don't leverage the Facebook sales organization. So it's important to note that if you're a social gaming company or a lifestyle app, whether it's moms or dogs, or if it's back in the day Living Social before they turned into a group buy and they had top apps. But if you think of Zynga or Playdom or Disney, the channels in which you can reach people don't come through the Facebook sales organization nor through standard ads. So even though there's 800 million people, I think that may not be the right messaging or the right point. And I think that's part of the problem and why they're taking $4 billion and there's lots of other platforms that are actually reaching people more thoughtfully through consumer-facing applications or social games, which we know everyone's playing. And Doug, to your earlier point, the reason that they're not probably driving more interaction or getting more dollars is that their ad model is the closest thing to where we just came through and my points earlier, which is traditional ad tech. It's banners to the right of what we're doing.
Right.
I believe.
Chris, you're talking about the app developers.
Well, my first point was the app developers.
Right.
There's a lot of inventory with a lot of great companies that you can work through to reach consumers in a more thoughtful way. With Facebook, it's obviously it's effective. They're getting a lot of dollars, and there's great marketers on stage leveraging them. But that's one channel, and it's the closest thing to traditional display.
Right.
If I could get Zuckerberg in a room for a minute, I'd say, why are you not leveraging the likes, the statuses, and the comments, which are billions of activities taking place every day, and try to innovate a more thoughtful approach to reaching people through the native experience. And native hasn't come up yet today, and I should have mentioned it earlier, but native advertising is what people are naturally doing in their environments that we should be considering.
Well, this is an interesting sort of jumping off point, which is, we had this conversation last night in our prep session, that a lot of you live in major metropolitan areas. You live in New York, you live in San Francisco, you live in Chicago, Los Angeles, wherever. I live in a town of 3,600 people in the mountains of Vermont. And I see ads on Facebook from my local state representative who has a constituency of about 5,000 people. And he can buy those with a credit card on Facebook. So I say God bless Mark Zuckerberg, because he has democratized that level of advertising, and I bet you that's where a lot of their money's coming from. I do want to jump back here real quickly.
I did have another point
Lisa,
on this one,
yeah,
actually.
I wanted to go back to you on this because airplane stories are inherently social.
Yeah.
So you guys must be all over this.
Yeah, definitely we are. I mean, we have a lot of stories that come up recently, and this is kind of, Virgin America internal, but we had one of the people who works at Virgin America got engaged in SFO Terminal 2 and flew in first class to Cabo, and so that was all over Facebook. These stories beyond just people who work at Virgin America, there's a lot of those things like that as well. I would say also with airlines, we use social media for customer service as well. So there's a mix there between customer service and also marketing or advertising in any traditional kind of way. So that's just inherent to that. I also want to say about Facebook, okay, there's 1 billion people on Facebook. Where's the next 1 billion people on Facebook? And what is their average household income? It's probably not as good as the first billion. So I don't know how much we have in terms of inherent sort of growth in the Facebook standard general user base, right?
Yeah. Wall Street's asking that same question,
Right.
by the way, right
Right.
now. Okay, from the audience, what's next most important after Facebook when we're talking about social? Is it Twitter? Is it something else? Is Facebook at this point in time the whole conversation when it comes to social? Anyone?
Yeah, we have one back here, Dave Smith.
Do I hear Pinterest?
Professor Smith.
Hi, Dave Smith, Media Smith. I think there's two answers to that. The first is next most important to Facebook are the things that people put on Facebook, the applications, et cetera. Facebook is its own world. The second is the verticals, LinkedIn, and a lot of other verticals that have to do with this. There's a new one for neighborhoods. There are a lot of verticals out there, and Facebook has communicated to people that social works. And so there will be a lot more very, very effective verticals in this social marketplace.
Okay. Sounds like an endorsement that Facebook is not going away or going to be marginalized anytime soon from your perspective.
Doug,
Okay.
Any other hands? There we go. I'll just comment as I'm walking through. I think Dave's point's really great, which is you're going to see a lot more vertical companies taking advantage of what Facebook's created.
Hi, Ken Simon. I think one of the untapped things going forward is TV. And I think everyone is talking about TV. All of the game devices are challenging the TV paradigm. And I think even with when you look at an Xbox Live, what they've done with social, I think TV can steal a page out of their playbook and make TV a lot more interactive with your friends and not just tweeting about it and not just putting it on Facebook, but the content actually empowering people to do things together in a storytelling manner that really hasn't hit the road yet.
Yeah, I think social television is certainly going to be something that will get people's attention.
But that's interesting because if you look at Hulu, for example, I don't feel like they've done anything more than just slap on a share button. That's the first thing. They've hardly done anything more than just slap on a share button on their content. And the second piece there is that on an advertising side, they're hardly giving any information to advertisers about what's going on, as you would imagine online digital television content would provide. So there's some major network issues there.
Okay. Over here.
Daniel Block from the Online Publishers Association. I think that social is the platform, so Facebook is where people are doing the sharing, but going back to what people are sharing, so where the Facebook environment is driving to, how many people are consuming content as a result of Facebook, so going back to the environments that Facebook is driving out to, and following them and their conversation and how they're engaging on the Facebook platform, but relating it to what they're sharing within Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn.
Yeah. I think what's interesting in tying these two things together, these three things together, it's the fact that, if we think about Facebook as sort of like a separate channel or as a separate sort of thing to focus on, a separate market, we ignore the fact that it can sort of enhance and amplify a lot of the other things that we want to do, right? It can be the secret ingredient in a whole lot of things that we do. And I'm no homer for Facebook, but pretty darn important when it comes to that thinking.
Hello, Doug. Mark Westlake, Tech Media. So I got a question. We talk all about social, and there's so much you can do for free. And I hear the panel talk about how important the analytics and the ROI and everything. And, I heard an interesting, comment from a colleague of mine about scoreboard marketing, about how many, everybody's doing Facebook because all the marketers are doing Facebook because I should be doing it because my competition's doing it, so I should doing it. But no one knows what they're getting in return. So my question for the panel is, how much, you got GM now pulling out, right, of Facebook, which is kind of interesting. Ford, of course, saying we're going to stay. There's a good, perfect example of scoreboard marketing. But the question I have for the group is, how much do you really need to spend on this? Because there's so much you can do for free, by engaging and using other means to pull people in.
I think it depends on how you're defining free, because they're buying the advertising, and granted, we can minimize that and find other ways to drive that audience into our sites. But to really create compelling experiences for our consumers, we still have to spend money on the content and on the environment and on the innovation to make all of that actually work. So so while we may not spend as much on Facebook to advertise, having that presence on Facebook and making sure that it's compelling and engaging and really represents your brand, there's still a spend that has to happen there. And that actually is increasing because we're having to do unique things on that platform versus what we do on our website or on our mobile site and some of the other digital destinations.
Well, and if you're spending money to create the content, and believe me, having 3 to 5 people, let's say, in your social team is not free. That's a lot of money. If you're already spending the money to create that content, then you might as well spend a little extra money to amplify that content. Because if you've noticed, it's not that easy to get your message out on Facebook for free anymore. It's easy to hide people's content. It's easy to hide people in the stream. Oh, that's annoying. Let me just hide them, and they're gone. So you have to work to amplify that content that you've already spent so much to create.
Well, and I think to build on that, if you have a compelling message / offer, whatever your kind of PR outreach strategy is on Facebook, it's not about reaching your fans necessarily. Right. It's often about reaching that additional addressable audience, the friends of fans. And so it does take money to kind of amplify that conversation and to kind of feed to activate the social graph and get those people talking. I also think, I'm a big believer in a lot of these companies that have built up on the Facebook platform. And that's, those are engaging, interesting avenues to pursue in terms of getting in front of users in a compelling way. It does take money.
Hey, Doug.
Yeah.
Doug, I'm over here.
Okay.
We got a quick question.
One more quick question. We've only gotten to the so part so far.
Sure, my name's
Still
Eric
have
Swain.
Mo to come.
Eric Swain with Mark Research. I'm worried that we're ignoring this vastly long tail of things that are not Facebook, Twitter, or LinkedIn.
Yep.
There's a fascinating amount of conversation on blogs. Communities like Intuit's forum are absolutely crucial to small business owners. Microsoft has done a ton of things for B2B spaces through forums and message boards. Automotive is dominated by forums and message boards and that conversation going on. Are we focusing on Facebook because it's easy to buy that media inventory instead of effective inventory?
That's a good point.
Yes, maybe.
My answer would be it's probably the one that everyone, A, knows of because you probably all have it on your phones and on your computers and you all have accounts. And so that makes it easier, I think, to have that conversation. But to your point, I agree, and that was kind of the intention of my opening comment, which is there are so many other ways that people share information, whether it be blogs, whether it be the valuable companies like Share This or Add This, like those are authentic conversations. That is me emailing you something personally. That's social. And if I can mine that information and actually get into that conversation with you, that's very powerful. And so I completely agree that there is the 800-pound gorilla, and there are a lot of other ways to really hit targeted audiences and targeted conversations.
That's the question of the morning, and that would be a mistake with this group if hopefully not all your questions are Facebook related, Doug, because we would lose the opportunity to talk about a lot of the businesses that are here. And if you ask some of the sales directors at Tapjoy if they take stuff for free, they're probably going to tell you that they don't. I know we don't either. So that's a great point. And including Pinterest or Spotify has a sales team now. There's a lot of new innovative platforms that have sales organizations that are creating new ad products and platforms. I know Twitter's speaking next. Facebook is one component of the equation. They're an important one, but don't lose sight that they don't speak to the entire ecosystem of ad opportunities for the agencies that are here.
Indeed, they don't. They're not even on the next slide, which we're going to go to now because we're behind.
2 quick points on that, because you did mention Microsoft, and I think you're definitely right. From a B2B perspective, many of our marketers think about, when we think social, we think about Facebook as a last result, because we have created, with IT professionals and developers, those professionals actually come to Microsoft forums to learn more and to engage and to interact. So we definitely see the value of that. But when it comes to the consumer side, I mean, let's be real. We have to go to senior management, senior executive has to fund this. If we're talking about executives, and again, being very transparent, executives who didn't grow up in the digital age, whose marketing backgrounds are not in the digital space.
Don't have Facebook pages themselves.
Exactly, but they hear about Facebook, so they're gonna say, well, what about Facebook? It's what they know and what they hear, so if you want those dollars, you probably need to include Facebook in there.
Yep. Okay, so quickly, this is going to be this one ought to raise some hackles in the room. The current approach to mobile strategy is little more than a hangover from display. Most marketers and agencies are struggling to even define a vision for mobile at this point in time. We're barely even asking the right questions yet.
Yeah.
Lisa?
I mean, all that we hear is, how about some mobile advertising? How about putting a banner ad up or some kind of mobile ad up, and that's it.
What I'm really passionate about is, I kind of cringe because I have franchisees who own some of our stores, and so it's kind of a different dynamic for my business, and they all have their own opinions, right? And they will say, what's our mobile strategy? And my vice president, and what's our mobile strategy? And it makes me cringe because it's not a singular strategy. It's like 1,000 points of light. My attempt is to put down everything that we're doing and show where we're evolving those opportunities to take a greater mobile experience and go further, and then where can I supplement and bring uniquely mobile experiences into the mix. But we need to stop the silos, right? And treating mobile as this, this display strategy with a different, like allocate 10% of your spend on mobile and you're done. That's really short-sighted.
Yeah, Jen, you and I were talking about the last night at dinner, and I thought this was really a compelling way to think of it is, the question we should be asking is, how do we mobilize our current real strategy? Like, the way that we sell our products, the way we talk to our consumers, how do we sort of mobilize that rather than thinking about this discrete channel? But I think that's one of the big failings of our business is that sellers and agencies alike always organize around existing budget lines. And it's like, because there's a mobile budget, there can be a mobile agency. Because there's a mobile agency, there can be a mobile sales force. And I wonder if that's not, going to kill us eventually. Other thoughts on this one quickly?
One of the ways, so we've approached it at Microsoft, and this is beyond Xbox, it's broader Microsoft. So we spent some time in 2011 working through what are all of the tactics that comprise the mobile landscape, and really went through a lot of churn to figure out how do we discretely define them, because there's a lot of overlap, right? So we went from SMS all the way through to some of the more nascent, local, location-based and social integration type of tactics. And then we looked at the old-fashioned marketing funnel. For each of these tactics, which ones are more effective depending on what your marketing objective is? And then took that a step further and said, for all of our different audiences, which of these mobile tactics are they already engaging with? So when you start looking at it from that lens, one, you're looking at it from what are my marketing objectives, and how can mobile and the individual types of mobile tactics can help me achieve that objective. And then you start kind of thinking around what that objective is, and then looking at how your audience is using that. So those two pivots, one being more internal in terms of what you're trying to achieve, and the other being more external, what are my clients or my customers already doing? Where are they already showing up? And then converging those two, then you start to ask some of the right questions and have that more integrated discussion. And I think that's the key word. It's been a buzzword in the industry for years, but it's critical now, integration, really looking at it holistically.
Right. So we're gonna sacrifice a little bit of depth for speed because I want to have some time at the end here for just a couple more questions and statements from the audience. So we're gonna go quickly to local, right? Defining local solely around advertising metrics and budgets is dumb. Local encompasses everything from promotion to co-op to shopper marketing, CRM. We need new languages and approaches if we're even to begin cracking the code on local. Agree, disagree?
Agree. I mean, I think it's also about personalization and appropriateness for where the person is. For Virgin America, it's a lot about customer service, right? So I know, that someone is in the airport, for example, they probably want day of travel information. That makes more sense to them. So it's about providing them the right customer service at the time and building loyalty. Yeah, and don't you find that when are you seeing those departments kind of stepping up and saying we need digital solutions as well? The CRM group, Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think we see very quickly when things go wrong on the website or things go wrong with weather, you name it, we see things like call volume go way up. And let me tell you, that is a very, very big cost. We know exactly how much that costs us. And so if we can provide better solutions that are where someone is, appropriate to what they're doing, that's easier for them, a little more self-service, then we can really reduce that impact of cost on us.
And I think that's an important piece. Your conversion doesn't stop with someone buying a ticket.
Right.
So how can you use local, local data? I'm at the airport, I'm stranded, how can Virgin help me? That's right. Like those are important pieces about really fulfilling that customer promise through to, I had a great experience, and I want to do it again.
And right now, the way we're dealing with that, I mean, yesterday, for example, we had an issue with a plane going into Seattle, and there were some connecting flights that got missed. And because we have a really, really active Twitter team, they were able to respond to some folks and get them on their way and help them with accommodations and things like that. That's something that happens really frequently in our business because there are so many unpredictable pieces to customer service.
Can you guys buy US Air? Just take them out?
We are just about 1% of the entire US aviation market, so they're a little bigger than us.
But it's an awesome 1%. All right. So here's a quick one that kind of brings us back to sort of the general, solo mo topic here. Most agencies and sellers focus way too much on helping us, back to the budgeting question, helping us spend existing budgets, right? We all line up to help you spend the budgets that get created and aligned, but nobody really thinks about helping us grow budgets. And I think this is one thing that agency people in the room ought to be all over. It's like, how do I get the folks on the seller side to help me get bigger budgets and grow the money that I'm touching from brands like these? The point came up during one of our discussions that if you're challenged by budget constraints, you're probably not deep enough in the organization or strategic enough in your thinking. Agreed. I'd love to get comments from each of you on this one and see if there's agreement, whether you can build on this.
I think this somewhat artificially points the fingers at agencies and sellers. I think it's fair, but only to the degree that that strategy may not be in the organization itself either. So, I think there's the need, and this is why I'm so excited about this topic and this conference. There's a need for much stronger collaboration from brand to agency to publisher to really solve some of these problems and help develop that bigger vision. Because if the vision doesn't exist, there's no swimming upstream in strategy. If the strategy is not bought in on the top levels of the brands, there's nothing to kind of buy into or to get deeper into. So I think these are problems that still need to be solved in a lot of brands. I just don't think have that big strategic vision around what is the role of mobile and social, not as a channel, but as a path to grow our business. And so once that path has kind of been set, and certainly with agencies and publishers helping to build that bigger vision, budget's not an issue anymore. It's just a path to the consumer.
So the agency people were right all along. It is the client's fault.
I'm not letting the
I would say it's shared responsibility. It's shared responsibility.
Doug, I'd like to add two things.
Please.
I think that clients need agencies to be our visions for us in these new spaces. That's just the way it is. Industry benchmarks, best practices, like leadership will eat that up inside of an organization. So bring that. Help us see what we can't see because we're drowning in the operational management of our organization. And then, second thing is there's always budget when there's a successful opportunity. So if there's something that works, we'll find the budget. So, don't get so wrapped around the axle about, is there going to be enough budget? Show me it works, and I will find the money. I don't know if you guys agree in your organization if that's true.
Yeah.
I think true. And what I find is often, when agencies or publishers come in to talk, they're very specifically talking about their technologies or what they can bring, and it's very much a sales conversation. And I think, yeah, absolutely. But if they take that step back and start to position themselves and start to position yourselves as thought leaders and as our partners, I think we can go a lot further and really take that partnership to convince senior management and to really have that strategic vision. But it really comes, I think the opportunity for agencies, because you're dealing with multiple brands, you're dealing with multiple publishers, you're dealing with the outside world where each of us is kind of in our silos or our bubbles of our brands and our companies. You can bring that thought leadership and that can really start to develop, but all too often it becomes just a specific sales conversation when if you're a trusted advisor, you're going to be talking about the pros and cons of even your competition and what that means and what a holistic approach would be. So I would say
things outside your wheelhouse even.
Exactly, and how it connects. You may have a social mobile product that you're selling or platform, but how does that connect to where the biggest budgets are? And that's television. How does it connect to that, and how can it augment that? Really understanding where your clients are and trying to be that partner.
Hey, Doug, I have a question from Joey.
Okay, we're going to get the hook in just a minute here, so real quick one, Joey.
And then just one point that I think is important to make is that the social budgets within agencies...
Wait a minute, are you asking Joe's question now?
Yeah, he actually texted to me. But the budgets within agencies that are social are typically deemed small. In order for this conversation to move forward, we need to tap display. Display is where there's billions of dollars. Social budgets are typically cute. We need to get the display dollars to move those things along.
Fair enough. Joe?
Oh, thanks. I'm Joey Dumont from Questus. First and foremost, it's awesome to see 4 women on a panel. No offense, but one silver fox and a blue jacket's enough. So my question is, your former colleague, Porter Gale, talked about a $10 million marketing budget, and 70% of which was digital. And I thought that was unbelievably cool. What are you guys doing? Actually, sorry. What do you guys do in the sense of allocating specific digital budgets as it relates to all these challenges? Are they moving forward? I mean, I'm an agency guy, biased, but are you guys building or allocating different budgets for digital because they all fall under that space?
Well, the entire budget is growing, of course, as we grow, and continue to really prioritize digital. It's a major bias in our entire marketing organization. It remains that way. Yep. And really, I think the question of where do these social, local, mobile budgets come from, quite frankly, because I believe in it so much, as it were, the social people come to me and say, hey, we don't have any budget for this, but we know it's important. Here's why. I say, okay, let's figure it out. Let's take something from display, for example. Let's find some way to fund it, and if it's successful, we'll keep funding it. So, no, I mean, we still have that very, very strong bias, as it were.
Okay. So, unfortunately, we are going to have to cut it off there, and you guys are going to have to continue your conversations with these 4 amazing women over the course of the next couple of days. I want to thank you all for preparing and for bringing such great, candid feedback to the audience. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Doug.